What is up, everyone? This is your host, Eric Holtzman, and welcome to the Mindful Motion Podcast. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. I am sitting here with exercise pro Christian Olivero, and he lives out in Florida. First time I'm talking to Chris, so this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to hearing his story and some of the things he's picked up over the years working as a personal trainer. We're here to discuss how you can enjoy your exercise without believing you have to wreck yourself or punish yourself training in order to see some of the benefits and gain results. Christian is a certified mastery resistance training specialist. In my opinion, this RTS program is by far the most advanced curriculum for exercise mechanics in the world, that at least as far as I can see. And he is incredibly passionate about exercise and has hopes to get into competitive bodybuilding in the future. And I would love to talk about that a little more. I'd like to kickstart this off with just kind of going over your story, Chris, and how you got into fitness and why you love it so much.
First off, thank you, Eric, for the great introduction. I came across the page and I was like, here's like a guy doing amazing things, like helping people out and like really helping people enjoy exercise and improving people's lives. So thank you, Eric, for having me on. So with me, it's funny. It's kind of started in high school, right? So I started training with this guy named Rob DiDonato. And he's a MAT specialist, and he's also a strength coach too. And I was 18 years old, and like and you know, in high school football, like the typical thing to do is, you know, your workouts, power cleans, hand cleans, back squats, deadlifts, all in that order, all in the same day. So, but with Rob, it was always different. It was always like, it was like my first introduction to like intention-based training, which is like, okay, slow down, pause, squeeze, use your muscles to move the weight, and don't just move the weight just to move the weight. So that really like took me like by surprise, and I actually started to enjoy the training more than like the practice side of football. I enjoyed lifting weights more from that point on than actually like playing football on the field. And pretty much like I decided to not pursue college football and to pursue becoming a coach and a personal trainer. And how I found like the RTS program was through Rob too. I was 19. Well, I'm sorry. At this point, Rob took me under his like mentorship, and like he was my mentor. He still is my mentor. I looked up to him for a while. And basically he told me, hey, do you know who the best trainer in the world is? I'm like, who? And then he's like, Tom Purvis. And I was like, who's Tom Purvis? And then that's when I just went down like a rabbit hole. You know, I was like 19 years old, like looking up videos on YouTube, and like, so some videos had thousands of views and some videos had only 100 views, but both were still amazing. And that's when I pretty much got introduced to this world at 19. And I went to my first RTS Foundations course with Steve Van Zalt when I was 21. Then later on went to Mastery when I was 22. Now I'm 23, and I'm looking forward to going back to Mastery and really trying to improve my skill set even more and dive deeper even more. So, yeah.
You played football in high school. What position you play?
Defensive lineman. So I was like 200. Yes, I was like 280 pounds, and like I loved it because it was like you didn't really have to think. You just went, and you didn't really have plays. You had calls, so it was more enjoyable than offense, in my opinion. So.
Damn, dude. Yeah, I was a linebacker, D lineman. You had 280. Damn, you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, I just ate like a normal person, because when you're that weight and you struggle to get to that weight, you have to like eat like nonstop the whole day, and to maintain that weight, you have to eat like that the whole day, and it's pretty much a job. So just eating like a regular person, the weight just went down.
Yeah, the experience with training and football is definitely kind of similar across the board wherever you play. Like you mentioned, the same core lifts and no attention to how you do it. Like I remember, oh yeah, I could bench 315, but only if I bounce it off my chest and like throw it, and that's really, really punishing to your body. I'm still trying
It's
to restore some of the damage I did by lifting that way. It's not good for long-term health. And as you probably experience, you can get stronger lifting lighter weights with more control than doing it in that fashion. Has that been your
a- a-
experience?
absolutely. I've gotten way. I mean, obviously, I don't weigh 280, so I don't bench 315 anymore for like reps. Like,
Mhm.
but like when you seriously like have a good foundation of controlling things, controlling the changes of direction, like having more of an internal biased way of training instead of like an external bias, like, oh, I have to move 100 pounds because last time I moved 90 pounds, so it's time to move weight today. You definitely feel yourself getting stronger, and you feel your muscles being able to tolerate more, and definitely it's definitely more enjoyable than just like bouncing off my chest. Okay, guess what? I went to 315 and for 10 reps, but my chest didn't get any bigger. So what was the point in that? Like, okay, it was it, it was good for the ego, but it wasn't good for the actual your body. You get me?
Yeah, 100%. And it's so weird. I don't know if you can relate to this, but when I think back to those days when I lifted like that, and I try to do things like that now, I just notice like all these negative sensations come up. I don't recall ever feeling that back then, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention or didn't understand that that was happening, like joint pain and tendinous insertional discomfort and things like that. You look back on that, do you even recall feeling those sensations? I don't really
I
think
don't. Me neither. The only thing I do remember is always having like a bruise right here from how hard I would bounce the weight off my chest. Always had a bruise down here, and I would look at like for people in the gym, and I was like, "Hey, nobody else has that bruise. Am I like special or something?" And like that's how hard I would bounce it from having like 315 in my hand, just bouncing it every rep. I would
yeah.
have a bruise like 24/7.
Yeah, I feel like I still have always some sensitivity in that xiphoid process where you pointed out, just from doing that. I don't think it will ever go away.
Right? It's like for forever damage. But for some reason, for me, I was able to like escape with no serious injuries or no serious like nooks and crannies. Like the only thing I have is like, okay, my left external rotation isn't as good as my right, but it's like, I mean, it's nothing like crazy where like one shoulder is about to dislocated and the other one's fine. No, thank God nothing like that happened. And even Rob, obviously, when you're a football player, you have to bench because of the combine and whatever. Rob was the first time like that. He introduced me to that block where he would place like a wood block here, so you weren't able to go as far down.
Mhm.
And pretty much, I credit him to like pretty much saving my shoulders because I met him when I was 18 and I was able to work out in a more productive way. So
Yeah, you
thanks to him.
kind of got lucky getting into it on an early age, man. Completely
Yes,
transitioned your thought process in a positive way. So,
absolutely, man. There's people. I mean, like there's people like in their 40s and like they still haven't taken the red pill and they still don't want to learn and they think, well, oh, I've been here in this business for 20 years, but like you've repeated the same 2 months for 20 years. That's why like you know so little. But
mhm.
I mean, I'm a firm believer is like you always have to look to progress. If I'm not progressing, I'm dying or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to the mindset around exercise and as a professional, it should be an ongoing investigation for sure. You know,
Absolutely.
exercise is a very encompassing thing. What about exercise do you love so much? Like what gets you excited about it?
Pretty much for myself personally, it's enjoyable. It's like some people are like, oh, I have to work out. It's like for me, it's like, oh, I get to work out. Like now is when my fun starts. And today, like for example, I had an hour in between clients, so like I used that hour as efficiently as I could. And for me, it's just like seeing your body develop over time and seeing adaptations taking place and like and exploring too, because it's like there's so much like talk about that. What I don't know if you've seen Instagram nowadays, but there's like a optimal club and then a non-optimal club, like um, argument going around where like you have this group of people and it's like, okay, if you want a dumbbell press, it better be at 45 degrees, or if not, it's not optimal for your shoulder and for your pec mechanics. And it's like, why not both? Like, it's a fan for a reason, right? Like, there's not one way to strengthen any muscle. Mm-hmm. So, couldn't there be value in both? Stretching it, whatever, this way versus this way? I don't know. I believe so. And that's what I enjoy the most, like really exploring my body. And when it comes to training clients, obviously helping people reach their goals. Like I remember I had this client that he had trouble like walking. He had trouble like dorsiflexing. And it's kind of cool because it's kind of like you see your work, you see your work like right away. Yes. Like for example, you do some isometrics or you do like something to like fire it up or the muscles around the axis, and he gets up and he walks better. Like how satisfying can that be? Like somebody improved right in front of your face. And that's really more enjoyable than like, okay, having someone training them for weight loss. Okay. Because we all know like a weight loss problem isn't really an exercise problem. It's more like a mindset problem. Like, but that's what I enjoy. And obviously like dealing with like bodybuilders and their competitions, like this is their time of the day to come in focused and to train as intensely as they can. And they trust me to help them accomplish that safely and effective. So I'm very grateful for that. And that's a part that I enjoy too. So,
yeah, I think with RTS background, and we'll talk a little bit about that program and your experience, but giving us the objective reality and truth around what's actually happening in the body. Like you say, there's a lot of camps and dogmatic ways of thinking that are just based off subjective interpretation and opinions, which are very misleading. And as you say, like there's no optimal position necessarily. There's just a different variation of the exercise altering what is being targeted or what's participating. But to look at it like this is better and that's worse is just so superficial. And that's a big problem in our industry. I'm sure you run into it all the time, especially with bodybuilders. That is a whole nother another piece.
Yes, literally. Like there's so many bodybuilding myths. Like if I had $1 for every time like a competitor came to me saying they need to grow their glute ham tie-in, where their glute and their hamstring attaches, like the tendon, like they need to grow the tendon. And it's like, okay, you grow the tendon by getting the actual muscle bigger and then leaning down. That's how you're able to see it. It's not like a tendon workout, it's a muscle workout. And it's like dispelling all these myths and like saying what's another, wide grip, wide lats, that's another one.
Inner outer chest, lower
inner outer chest, upper inner, which is better. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know what? That was once us. So it's like we were able to like progress and actually try to learn for ourselves. And we learned it. Now we're able to explore and help other people understand. But some people are just like, I don't know. They'll never learn if they don't want to learn. So
yeah. You just gotta present the information and then see where it goes, and you might have to just leave it at that for some people.
Absolutely.
So some might say you're the glute guy, right? Is that's the thing? You're the guy with if the girl wants to glutes bigger comes to you?
Some people might say that. I mean, that's where, like, I would say 70% of my clients are just those type of clients that they want to come to me with to grow their glutes and to grow their lower body.
So what strategies and perspectives would you say are important for building like stronger glutes, bigger glutes effectively? Like what are some key tenets that you've come across that are valuable for people?
I would say number one is stability. So it's like if you can fire a cannon out of a canoe. So Dan Pekulski always says that, and it's true. It's like you can't grow your lower body if you're balancing on a Bosu ball. You can't. It all starts with the foundation. So I look for exercises that like you're completely stable. The less juggle possible, the better. And I pretty much the way I set the workout up is go from most stable to kind of like less stable exercises at the end. And pretty much like if you're able to do that, like choose exercises where you really have a good mind muscle connection, or you really feel that muscle or that fiber good, stick with it and try to progress it as much as you can. Like I'm blessed in my gym. We have a gluteator, which is one of the best glute machines ever made, in my opinion. And it's very simple. It's like you barely need to think, and that's how. I mean, if you want to have the most effective, efficient workout, you shouldn't be. I don't want to say you shouldn't be thinking, but like juggling is like the last thing you want.
Yeah, you mean more like a choreographed dance move that requires you to memorize 10 different things.
Exactly. 10 different cues at once. And it's like just the simpler, the better.
Yeah.
And
So why go about it in the way where you say from stable to least stable? Why not the other way around? What's the thought process behind that?
So generally, I find the most stable exercises you're going to push to more weight, like a leg press, the gluteator, which you're pretty much tied down with a seat belt. I believe focusing on exercises that are going to help you push the most weights or have as much load or resistance as possible first is going to benefit you the most. And then I would finish off with like something like a cable kickback where you're kind of, it's not as stable. Well, I'm blessed to have the Cybex free motion where it has the arm sticking out, so I can pretty much stick out the arm and they can support themselves with the arm of the machine. And
that's the Bravo, right, with the pad?
The Bravo, yes, correct. Yeah. The Bravo with the pad. But having, in my opinion, like focusing on the exercises where you can have the most resistance, produce the most torque is the best, in my opinion, to start with.
Yeah, okay. Do you do any type of preparation before going to those hard sets where you're stable and lifting a lot of load?
Every set is a preparation set. Like I don't have this activation, quote unquote, where some traders do where they have a band where they're like doing like 1,000 reps with the band to activate. I much rather just prefer put them on the machine, start with light weights, progress slowly, and until we get to the heavier sets or the working sets.
Yeah, I pretty much do that unless there's some specific reason otherwise for clients. It's just simpler and it gets the job done, right? Why do you have to do?
Exactly. I mean, if, for example, I've had clients with hip problems or like hip discomfort, so we might start with something else, like a hip flexor exercise to kind of activate that area or fire that area up, quote unquote. So they might have some better sensations during their actual working sets. So when they're actually trying to focus on pushing as much weight as possible with as best form as possible. So
yeah, okay. I got a can of worms for you right here. Is so squats. That's a glute exercise, man. Is that the best glute exercise that you can think of?
Absolutely. No, I'm just kidding. Squats. Okay, it depends on how you're built. So, for example, you've seen this. If if your proportions lead you to bend over as much as possible, then it can become a hip exercise, but it also can become a lower back exercise, which kind of, I mean, if you're trying to build as much glutes as possible, you don't want your lower back to be the limiting factor. So I much rather prefer like a leg press with a foot stance that has the most torque at the hip with the least torque at the knee, and it's all going to be client specific. So it's not whether it's high, low. It's individual for the person in terms of where you place your feet. And so leg press more often than not is a better glute exercise than squats. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, I don't think it's so clear. Everyone just gets on a leg press and puts their feet wherever they go. It's different every time, you know. Do you have, without knowing the person, so people can take away something from this, some key easy steps someone might consider when they're putting their feet on a leg press if they want it to be a glute exercise? Say it's a 45-degree angle one where you're leaning back, plate loaded. Obviously, you don't know this person, you don't know how it's shaped, but generally, where you place your feet on average will bias areas. Where would you suggest someone put their feet if they want it to be a glute-based thing?
So for a 45-degree leg press, where would someone place their feet if they want to bias as much glutes? So when they come down to the bottom, when they're lowering the carriage down, you generally want the direction of the machine parallel with your tibia at the bottom. So let's say when you come down, your tibia is not in line with the direction of the leg press is going. Well, you might feel a little bit more quad, and vice versa. If you put your feet too high up, you know, you have that hidden resistance friction coming along too, which turns into a quad exercise. So it's all like in generally speaking terms, you want your tibia in line with the direction of the leg press at the bottom position.
Okay, so like 90 degrees, so there's no forward friction into the plate, but also
correct.
So knees not flexed too much, so where you're getting more potential quad involvement at the bottom. Makes sense.
Correct.
Cool. Well, let's dive into this this RTS stuff a little bit. I'm just want you to maybe go into your experience about it. You know, what was your takeaways from the program before you went? What were your perspectives, and then after you went through the program, how did it change your views of exercise?
Well, thank God I had Rob to kind of like prepare me a little bit when I was like 18 years old. So like I wasn't going in there asking questions about like, oh, is the single leg squat a good exercise or something like that. But definitely like learning about forces and like, because obviously the most easy example of a moment arm is having a dumbbell raised at your side. Okay, like everyone sees that moment arm perfect, but not everything is that perfect to see. And just like the nuances of everything, and like especially like the forces, seeing when you push this way, why does the force increase here versus this way here, definitely changed my perspective and how I prescribe exercise to clients. Also, the machine analysis is like one of the best in the world. Like you literally can't find another course to teach you that. Like this is the only course to teach you about machine analysis or equipment analysis. I'm sorry, and definitely how to adjust it for the client and how to manipulate what we all like to reference, the resistance profile, and how important that is for every client, and why choose one machine over cables or one machine over dumbbells. It's not good or bad. It's just different for and client to find for every client.
Yeah. So why don't we unpack that a little bit? What is a resistance profile for people that might not know what that is?
A resistance profile is how a machine applies torque to your body at different positions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
so where at which point of the machine is getting heavy or lighter, and that's the resistance profile.
okay. And that needs to match, I guess, strength profiles, right? So could you maybe
Absolutely.
explain in your words what a strength profile is, and then why any of this is even important?
A strength profile is what forces can your body produce at different positions. So why is it important? Because your body can't produce the same force at every position. So let's say the easiest example is a lateral raise. So everyone loves to do lateral raises with the dumbbells, but the reason that might not be the best option for everyone is not everybody can produce the same. Well, sorry, everybody's strength profile is going from heavy, strong to weak, but it's the opposite when it comes to dumbbells. Dumbbells it goes from light to heavy. So if you want to be more efficient, the best thing I would do, and I'm pretty sure you too would be, to have a strength profile that matches your resistance profile, or I'm sorry, have a resistance profile that matches your strength profile.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone, like you said, can clearly relate to if you take a 5-pound weight and you hold it out to your side, like right there, it's going to be significantly heavier than when you have it by your side on the right next to your leg, right? And
Absolutely.
like you're saying, up here is your weakest place, generally speaking, and then down by your side is where you're strongest, but you got no resistance down there, and you got a ton up here. As you get tired, you're not going to be able to finish the rep, and you have to end up throwing the weight. This is why you see people always launching it, right?
Yeah, doing like a clean and lateral raise pretty much, or a clean and curl. Everything starts at the hips for everyone using dumbbells
But you know,
or free weights.
it's kind of interesting though, like when you think about bodybuilders and how huge some of these people are, and most of them don't even consider this fact. It makes you wonder, like, is it really that important, or is it just making the exercise feel better? Or would these people would be more efficient with their training, potentially have less injuries and get where they want to be faster if they honored some of these mechanical realities? Like, since you're
Yes,
kind of in that space, like, what are your thoughts about that?
I've realized that when I'm in this space, it's like genetics plays such a big role in everything. Like obviously, the reason the people that are obsessed with exercise like we aren't bodybuilders, because bodybuilders, like, everything comes so easy to them. Like they can pretty much almost do any exercise and they'll still produce muscle. They still grow muscle. So I would say this is more important for like the people that actually need it most, because bodybuilders can literally do anything and still grow. Like I've seen Jay Cutler in person, and Jay Cutler like can like grow muscle by walking. Like by looking at a weight, he can grow muscle. So this resistance profile to strength profile matching scenarios, I believe, can still absolutely benefit bodybuilders, because like you're just taking things and making them better for your body, and probably taking less of the damage and less of the volume if you had a good profile
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, dude, to your point, like it's like a pro athlete, right? You can literally hit a pro athlete with a bat and they'll probably get stronger from that, but
Absolutely.
yeah, and from my experience, and maybe if you have clients who've had injuries and who are dealing with some stuff, as most people do, these things seem to matter. Like when I don't match my profiles with me, I end up getting real sore and beat up. I don't feel so great, So I think that's a good point. I think you're right. Like bodybuilders, at least the high level ones, probably don't need to worry about this as much. But while we're on this topic, I mean, since you kind of work with some semi-pro bodybuilders, right? Or at least people that want to get into that space. What's the difference between training someone with regular fitness goals for health versus someone who wants to be a competitive bodybuilder?
Well, I do train some professionals that are getting ready for the Olympia this year,
Oh, wow.
like Babby and Urishna, and basically the main difference is it's almost the same exercises, just the intensity level is going to be like at 100 compared to someone maybe just starting out might be like a 12, and a competitor will be 100. But I literally do the same exact exercises.
Hmm.
Like almost none of the exercises change, but we might with the athlete push it like at 100% intensity. Obviously, going up in weights, more repetitions, more sets. And with a person just starting them out, like I want to have them come back in 2 days. So obviously I can't push them that hard because if not, they'll be at home like in a wheelchair. So that's maybe the biggest difference, like being able to turn it up the volume and or quote unquote the metaphorical volume and really push these athletes.
Do you find from the bodybuilders you work with, which maybe this is sort of a loaded question, but is adding load more impactful to growing muscle, or do you find volume to be a bigger factor, or a mix of both?
There's definitely a mix of both because like you can't like there's definitely a point of like diminishing returns. You can't keep lifting as heavy as possible forever and ever and ever. So some things you have to progress, and one of the ways you can progress is volume, but that's always limited. Like what I can't progress somebody one set every single time we train, because then they'll be in the gym for like 10 hours by the end of the year. So it's definitely a combination, and definitely rest plays a big important part because obviously if you're a working class individual that does personal training, you probably have like a life outside of the gym. So you're going to sleep late, you have kids, you have work the next day. Bodybuilders, this is their job. So their job is to go to sleep at an appropriate time for them to recover and to be able to still work out the next day.
Mm.
So definitely a combination of both, but I definitely try to keep the volume down like as much as possible because obviously you want to have the minimal effective dose. So if I increase everything every single week, then like pretty much we're going to be not able to progress. So definitely on the side of increasing weight more than volume.
Okay. And I'm sure you, as we both do, everything is always variable person to person because some people respond differently to different types of progressions. So, yeah, I guess how do you know if your progressions are inappropriate or if you're taking someone down a path to getting overtrained? Like what kind of, I don't know, signals or things you notice, reports from a client that tell you, oh, maybe we're doing a little too much?
From a regular client or from like a bodybuilding client?
How about both?
Okay, definitely a bodybuilding client's definitely obviously their performance drops off a lot and they're going to be dieting throughout the year, high calories, low calories, and you kind of have to match their diet because why would you do the same volume, the same weight, the same intensity when you're having less calories in your body? Like it makes no sense. Some people do it reverse where they go lower in calories but they go up in volume and higher in intensity, but it's like you're just gonna run yourself to the ground. Like it's not really about okay who can be most hardcore and be the hardest worker. It's like who's smarter, and it's like it's day by day progression. How am I looking today? And if I'm beat down and if I'm like flat, quote unquote, where their muscles aren't as full as pumping, well then I might rest today. It's nothing like it's they don't reward you on how hard you worked in the gym. They will reward you on how good you looked at on stage.
Mm.
So definitely for bodybuilders, their performance drops off a lot. Then I pretty much know, okay, either lower the volume or more rest. But with the average clients, if they're really, really sore, that's how I know that, okay, maybe we need to go back and regress the person a little bit, or see the person less often, or if they're deprived, they have a lot of stress in their lives, so they can't afford to have the stress of exercise affect them even more.
Mm.
So we might lower the intensity or use more muscle groups. Like, not everybody has to have a leg day.
Yeah.
Maybe they can have a anterior day where they work all the muscles on their anterior side of their body, and a posterior day, all the muscles on the posterior side of their body. So definitely having less total volume per body part absolutely helps.
Okay. Yeah. Do you particularly care if a regular non-bodybuilder client is sore after a training session?
Absolutely, because then we can't train till they're not sore. So generally, I always tell my clients, if you're sore for more than 2 days, we overdid it. So let me know. And I've gotten better obviously with time, but I'm generally like can underestimate how to do it. We go under. I know at least the first day, and if they're sore for one day, and then the next day they say it's gone. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's the perfect amount of soreness, because everybody wants to feel sore. They believe the more soreness, the better the workout was. So we always have to have that little discussion, and they usually understand and they take it well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think people have a misconception that you get stronger from pounding yourself and being sore, but really you get stronger from recovery and consistency and you adapting to it. Can't really adapt if it's overdone, you know? So you work with both men and women, but you sounded like you do work with more females. But I guess, have you noticed any difference in how you need to approach training with females versus males? Has that ever come up?
not really. Females, well, I can say this: females, when it comes to leg training, they're like freaking warriors compared to men. Females can like take so much like punishment, or quote unquote punishment in the gym, compared to men. When it comes to lower body training, it's like astonishing. But definitely, um, females obviously have a thing called hormones, where you know you have to adjust the training for them,
Hmm.
based on how they feel, and and sometimes they're just might be feeling bad, but like it doesn't mean that they can't still work out. I mean,
Mhm.
so I try not to let that um, be an excuse, but obviously at an appropriate level, we're still going to train.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're
And
just alluding to like that time of month where things might be a little different, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, like for you, like how do you structure workouts for your clients? Maybe for your bodybuilding clients, like is there a procedure or a way that you try to organize training? Do you map out a program for months, or you map it out, you make changes? Like what's it look like for you in your world?
Pretty much, some of these bodybuilding people, that they have like a online coach, or like their bodybuilding coach, where it's person setting up their diet, their nutrition, and their training schedule. Pretty much, they come to me with their training schedule, and I look at it and I agree, and I adjust it if it needs adjusting, and I pretty much have them do all the exercises on their workout. But I make sure it's appropriate for them and at an appropriate intensity, so they're able to still train the next day because some of these people are training like 6 days in a row. So it's like you can't train them full throttle every single day, well, without expecting for them to recover like that. I mean, they're still humans and they still need to rest. So, and also we've had discussions where it's like maybe this exercise is kind of dumb. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like a frog pump, for example, is like I told like one of my clients, like, okay, a frog pump, you're on your ankles when you're and hip thrusting at the same time. How much weight do you think you can push when you're on your ankles? And then the person was like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, so we'll probably do this instead. And pretty much that. And because a lot of these bodybuilding coaches, I mean, they're not exercise mechanics experts, or they've never taken a course on exercise. Or so a lot of the programs are kind of like old school mindset, deadlift, squat, freeway squat. And sometimes I have to tell the athletes, like, hey, for your interest, this might not be the best exercise for your goal at this very moment right now. So always kind of case by case. Some people are really good at programming their clients. Like, for example, like the clients that I train, the competitors, and some people they don't, and it's like they'll put like a squat and a deadlift maybe back-to-back days, and I tell the person maybe which the way you want to train, maybe it's not appropriate to do that back-to-back days. So let's think of something else appropriate. And they usually understand, and they usually trust me and agree with me. So like just that, like that's kind of my job, kind of like adjusting it and maybe doing some tweaks, and obviously watching the performance and making sure that they're doing it with good form and controlling it as best as possible.
So how much customization goes into like bodybuilding programs if someone maybe hasn't developed certain parts of their body to the level that they need to, but other parts are really developed? Do they still do the same amount for everything, or are they starting to maybe bias to certain things to help bring things closer to what you want for stage ready?
Absolutely. Like, definitely, obviously your strong body parts, quote unquote, the body parts that you don't need that much volume allocated to that, you allocate more of the volume towards the body parts you do. And you might actually train the body parts you need more volume on more days, so it's more total volume. And just making those adjustments. Like, for example, I have 2 wellness girls that train with me, and both of them, like, their quads are like the size of my waist. So obviously they're probably not going to do too much quads. They're probably going to focus more on glutes because that's their goal, and we allocate more volume towards their glutes, and then also with more days, so their quads aren't taking over.
Yeah. Or the quotes, just to be sure that's not exactly a real thing, but
yes, because like I have, like, if I had $1 for every time I hear, oh, my quads take over a lot, and it's like, okay, what are you doing? Oh, a hack squat. And it's like, okay, what do you expect to feel when you're doing a hack squat? Oh, but if I go halfway down, it's more for glutes. And it's like, well, there's something called friction, and it's trying to bend your leg, and the only thing that's keeping your leg from being bent is your quads. And then we have to have that discussion, and it's like, and it's all like, oh, okay, and at least they understand it, they get it, and we can kind of move on and have a better training decision.
Yeah. I've never done this. It just makes me think maybe you've tried. Have you ever tried pulling your heels back when you do a hack squat? Can you make it a hamstring thing? I don't even know if that's possible.
I've actually never tried, but maybe your butt would come up
Yeah,
like too much.
I don't have one in my gym, so I never get to use
That'll,
one. It just makes me
I
curious
get you.
if you could play around with that or not.
Yeah, I will though. But absolutely. But you know what's kind of cool though? If you turn around on the
Yeah,
hack squat, do a reverse hack squat, you get a huge moment arm to your hip. So that's
yeah,
why that might be a more appropriate hack squat decision if you want to train your glutes.
yeah.
So um, kind of cool.
So, bodybuilders, regular people, especially bodybuilders, if you're training as hard as they do, is there any like attention or preventative strategies for mobility and injury stuff? Like, do you have any type of way of like preparing to make sure that they don't get hurt, or is it just making sure their training's done in a way that they don't get hurt?
The number one thing I always preach is like controlling the stops and starts
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of bodybuilders they've made amazing progress on their bodies and training quote unquote um, fast and bouncing. They're using their themselves as like pretty much something to bounce off of. Like for example, the most easiest example with these girls is they bounce off a leg press. They'll bounce off the bottom of their thighs. When their thighs come down, they bounce off their stomachs or something like that. And it's and if we can like just control the changes of direction better, you pretty much it becomes a lot harder to get injured, and you might not need so much weight. So it's a win-win. So I always try to preach like control and stopping at an appropriate way, and then starting up again at an appropriate way. And it's usually like the first time they do it, they don't know what to think because they've never had those sensations of actually controlling something. All the sensations they've had is just like kind of bouncing off their joints or bouncing off other tissues. So
Yeah.
definitely controlling it absolutely helps.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing. It's so simple, but yet we're talking about avoiding the potential joint stress through aggressive inertial effects of lots of load being smashed on your body. And it makes it harder when you have to stop it. You might even have to go lighter in order to do that. So that's like a win-win,
Absolutely.
What I'm sure this happens. So what do you do if a client feels pain during the exercise in their muscles and their joints, just some sort of discomfort they don't like? What do you do about that?
Well, the first thing I try to find out is at what part of the exercise is it at the top of the exercise when you're doing a leg extension? Is it at the bottom? Is it in the middle? Somewhere in the middle. Then we try to kind of do like a little investigation. So we adjust the start position. Maybe we don't start up at the bottom. Maybe we start up closer to the top. Maybe we obviously lower the weight, but if lowering the weight it isn't an option, or we've already lowered the weight and it's still hurting, then we might play around with the setup too. How are the joints aligned with the axes of the machine, and are they matching? So definitely adjusting, or we do a completely different exercise altogether, and we find another solution. So
Yeah. So
it's
you're saying like work above or below the pain and see if it can find a portion of the range that feels good, essentially.
absolutely.
Yeah, it does seem to work really well. It's kind of crazy too, because when you do that, it almost like you can see the window of the pain start to shrink and even almost go away altogether. It's kind of weird.
Absolutely. Like I've noticed, like for example, on leg extensions, like it's when the people say, "Oh, I have pain with doing leg extension," it's always on how they do it. Like
Yeah,
it's never on really like the leg extension itself. I'm like, okay, show me how you do a leg extension, and then they they come up and the the pad bounces off their tibias at the top. And it's like, okay, maybe try coming up a little slower and stopping smoothly, and maybe it won't hurt. And most of the time, people are like, wow, it doesn't hurt, and it's always like, okay, it's the way you do it. It's not what you do; it's always how you do it that matters more.
No, man, it's the shear. The shear is the problem.
Absolutely, it's the sheer. It's gonna rip your patella, but it's always how you do it.
Um, so you mentioned this at the beginning. You talked about intention. That was a big thing that shifted your perspective with Rob, I believe it was, back when you started this whole process. Like, what role do you find intention plays in exercise? Like, do you think it's an important piece? And then how do you utilize that for people?
Absolutely, it's one of the most important. That's why Tom has it on the exercise equation. But definitely, it's you can literally do the same exact exercise and have completely two different sensations based on your intention. So what I always tell my clients is, obviously that's where cues come in. Okay, if you want to maybe feel your glutes on this um, hip thrust where you're bridging up, well then you might try to drag your heels back or push your heels directly down instead of trying to push forward on the ground. And for example, if you still push forward, the exercise still looks exactly the same from the outside looking in, but it's a completely different internal feeling or
Hmm.
sensation. So it definitely plays a big role in trying to give the sensations um, people want and people are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wonder because that's 100% real. I'm always curious though, is like, even if the sensations change, are the outcomes really any different, or is just the experience different? I don't really expect you to have an answer for that, but it's just
Well,
like,
it's kind of funny because like the first time I saw Tom, like it was at Steve's place, and we were doing like an elective, kind of like just like a 3 day thing, and that was before I took the mastery. It's like we were talking about bodybuilders, and he had me. I'm like, listen, Tom, these bodybuilders they want to like work their outer, upper, inner glute, whatever. Like they don't even know what to call it, but they kind of want to work different parts of their glute. And he had me lie down on like a massage table or like those tables that rise and lift
mm,
with my leg hanging down, face down. So like I'm going up into hip extension, and he puts his finger on the bottom attachment of your glute, and he puts like his other finger on my iliac crest, and he's like, bring my fingers together, and it's like I kind of thought, and I'm like, okay, I brought them together, and it's like, wow, I felt just kind of that little portion of the glute more than like the rest others. And he basically told me like, all you're selling with these bodybuilding trainers or these bodybuilding clients, I'm sorry, is a sensation. They want a sensation. That's why they go to you.
mm.
And it kind of like was like, yeah. I mean, what if we do the exact same thing, but they get a different sensation, but they still get the same results? What if I have them do a leg press, but they feel their quads, but we get the same exact feeling as if they were feeling their glutes?
Mhm.
Is it like the same? Would I be a bad trainer? So pretty much a sensation is like a big key in keeping clients happy, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in that space, because to the people feeling it makes them think that that's what's going to grow. So it's probably
Exactly.
important that they have some of that. Um,
Absolutely.
what are some misconceptions you hear about building muscle? Things that people maybe, junk science, gym science, things that don't really add up, but they're common in the space that you work in.
Um, Pretty much like that different is better. Like if I have a different workout every single day, well, I'm shocking the muscle, so that's what's gonna help me to grow. And it's like not necessarily because not everything um, that's different is effective. Um, for example, like I like to think of different as like giving yourself a different stimulus, maybe, and like maybe increasing the reps or the weight of a certain exercise, that's quote unquote a different stimulus or a novel stimulus, a new stimulus. And but a lot of like trainers and clients in this world, they think they have to do a new workout every single time they come to the gym, and it's like, okay, what if this workout is effective and you're making progress because you're getting stronger on all your lifts and you're seeing changes in your body that you want to see. Why not we stick with that instead of trying to look cool on Instagram and jump over hoops just to please your followers or please yourself, and thinking I'm doing new stuff, so this is better. That's probably one of the biggest like misconceptions people have.
Yeah. I hear that from my clients too. A lot of times, you gotta keep your muscles guessing. I'm like, oh, I didn't know they had brains. That's new.
I didn't know they were trying to learn something new.
Yeah, I think that's called motor learning, but I mean, whatever. So I guess we're gonna wrap up soon, but I was curious what kind of signs you look for, what helps you know or determine that a workout or training session was successful for someone? Like, what are some of the things that you're like, that was a good session versus this was awful?
It's kind of like different for everyone, but like it kind of depends on the client too, because some people, they're just looking for sensation. Some people they want to feel sore or they don't feel like it was a good workout. So it's kind of different for everyone. But basically, how I measure a workout is like, if they feel better and if they're not feeling sore the next day or 3 days after, it was a good workout for me in my book. But some people are different. They feel like they have to feel sore, and sometimes like you have to kind of give a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna make you feel sore, so let's push a little harder today, and whatever, you might not progress as fast, but you're getting what you want, so let's make you feel sore.
Yeah.
So and so it's kind of like different person to person. Obviously, if it's someone that shouldn't never feel sore, like maybe an orthopedically challenged person,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm not gonna make them feel sore. But if it's someone and it's like whatever, they're a meathead and they're a little crazy and they're not gonna get hurt or whatever, let's push it a little bit today. And pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to meet people where they're at if they want something, and then I guess
Absolutely.
you got to give it to them, right? Man, making someone sore is not hard. That's an easy thing.
Right? I'm like, when someone's like, hey, I'm not feeling sore anymore because like whatever, they're getting into training with me more and more, so they don't feel as sore as the first day, and I'm like, hey, go run 10 miles and you'll feel sore, but I promise you it's not gonna be inducive to your goals. And usually they kind of get the point from then on, is like doing anything new will cause you to feel sore. Like it's not like something like where it's like, wow, like I get an award now. It's like, okay, it's just soreness. It's just a byproduct. It's not the actual thing that's like helping you produce the results you want to see.
Yeah, I know it shocks people when I tell them you don't have to be sore to gain benefits or get better. In fact, it's your progress, but it doesn't resonate that often with people until they see it for themselves over time. Is there anything new you're like fascinated with now? Things you're trying out or interested in currently?
Well, I kind of want to get into machines, like producing gym equipment, because it's like
making them.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Because I've seen, like, obviously me and you have been in a lot of gyms, and we see like your typical like gyms where your typical generic equipment. And I'm like, what if like this pad was here and this was adjusted a little bit, and then this was fixed here? How different could that be? And I always it's kind of like you go into like another rabbit hole where it's like, okay, what if I'm able to produce this and adjust this? Like, would people like it? Like, so kind of starting to get into there and like talk to some people about like designing some machines. So I'm looking forward to
cool,
it.
man. Yeah, you know, Tom has been working on a line for like, everyone keeps telling me, like a decade now. And he told me last year or 2 years ago, oh, it's almost done. I guess he's been saying that for 10 years. And because you've seen his new stuff, right, at his space.
Yeah, like for example, like the leg press where he turned into like a row and
Oh, you mean the strength testing thing? Yeah, but all
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
he remodeled, all the adjustments he's made on all those equipment,
Oh,
those are all like,
of course.
yeah, like I'm excited. Hopefully he actually comes out with a
So
line. I would buy
so
it.
he's coming out with his own line. So it's not like his already adjusted machines. It's like completely new. Wow, I had no
Yeah,
idea.
that's what he's apparently been working on for a long time. But the way he described it is it would be really only for RTS people because no one else would know what the hell to do with them. And there would be tons of adjustments and all sorts of things. But I don't know. Hopefully he finishes it before he gets too old to do it anymore. Because
I know, right? Like I would always say, like, man, I need to go to RTS again because Tom, like, he's getting older and older, but he's crazy. He's like he never loses a step. Like he's always like,
yeah, he's
like
crazy, dude.
fast with it. I don't know how he does it, but yeah, man.
Yeah, he's a
Respect to
savant,
Tom.
neurotic savant for sure. Do you plan? You mentioned potentially becoming or going into bodybuilding. Do you have a projection of when you might do that? Do you plan to do that anytime soon?
I want to say a year or 2 years because I still need to put on like a good amount of muscle and like I'm taking my time. Like I'm not rushing anything. So, but definitely in a year or two.
Okay, cool. I'll look out and see when that happens. What
Appreciate you.
if anyone ever wants to like look you up or find some of your information, you don't do virtual training, I imagine, right?
I have, but I try not to do it.
Okay. Well, if someone wants to check you out on social media or wherever,
Okay, yeah.
where they find you.
So they can find me at Chris Vero Fitness. That's ChrisVeroFitness. Chris
All right.
Vero Fitness.
Cool. Yeah. People can check you out, see what some of your content looks like, and maybe hit you up if they have any questions.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
Really
man.
appreciate your time, and I love what you're doing. I love your posts. Keep on going hard, and I really respect you and thank you for letting me come on.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for taking the time to chat, and maybe we'll do one in the future.
Definitely, Eric. Looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you, Eric. Bye.